and the truth. I know, you know, they just don't have any proof. It's the deception, learn how to bend your worst inhibitions, then psych you out in the end.
Welcome to First Friday 5. It's the first Friday of the month, and we're watching 5 episodes of a TV show, then judging it based solely on those 5 episodes. Today's show is Psych. As always, I'm Korbin.
And I'm Korbin. Psych! I'm Kody. Welcome back to the show, baby.
Great bit. I've heard it both ways. And of course, joining us as our first guest on First Friday 5, it's the first guest that we ever had on KHAP, Connor VanOverberghe, another former roommate of ours.
And they were roommates. Yeah, it's good to be back. Like I said in my appearance, or my question that I submitted for the look back at 2 years of the pod, first guest, the best guest, and we had to keep that streak going. So glad to be here.
Setting the standard high early for all the future guests. So love to see it and excited to talk about Psych. The 5 episodes that we're going to be watching today are the pilot, season 1, episode 1 for the first episode. Mr. Yin Presents, season 4, episode 16, which is Connor's pick. Last Night Gus, season 6, episode 2, which is the highest rated episode. A Nightmare on State Street, which is season 8, episode 9, which is the lowest rated episode, as well as the penultimate episode of the series. And then the finale titled The Breakup, season 8, episode 10. Those are the 5 episodes we're watching. Check the description for a link. Go watch them on Peacock and come back and listen to the episode. No, you know, normally we want the guests to choose things. And I kind of said, hey, we should do Psych when you came on. But can you explain like why Psych is a good show for the 3 of us to talk about, Connor?
Yeah, I can. I really thought that you were going to dive into this. But Psych, good thing I prepared for it, though. I think really when we moved into the Hilltop apartment, the 3 of us together, I think Psych was really one of the first shows that we all like sat down and watched together, because I don't like The Office. So I didn't really watch that with y'all unless I was just sitting there hanging out. But yeah, I think that Psych was the first one because Korbin, you kind of started watching it again.
Yeah, I was doing a little rewatch and it just happened to like I would have it on, but then we would all kind of just like gather around the TV and we'd just be sit there watching. And then I think Kody, had you seen Psych prior to that? You hadn't, right? Or
no, I had.
So you ended up like going and like watching it all, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I think I may have missed a few spots here and there, and it was a while back, so I don't remember like everything about all the episodes. But I had never seen it before you had brought it up either. And like Vano said, I mean, it's kind of just a show like we would always just have on, sometimes in the background, sometimes just like when we all got back from class. So it's definitely one of those good shows where you can kind of just like, you don't need to know all the backstory of the characters and it's still enjoyable, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely one that's like very episodic and you can hop in at any point where you don't really have to know every bit of the story, which is, you know, great for a show like First Friday 5 that we're doing. It's like this, you know, light, fun, early 2000s comedy that kind of intersected with our humor bases, and it's got a great theme song that we love to jam out to as well.
Facts. I mean, this show in general, I feel like it's just unbelievable fun. And you know, great pick, Vano. Not really your pick, but you know, by default, I guess, good pick. Living up to the first guest type. Yeah, good to have you back, but good pick, even though it wasn't your pick.
Yeah, Korbin kind of jumped into it and was just like, hey, let's do Psych. And honestly, I forgot about it. And I was like, yeah, that's a great choice. I think it was maybe because conveniently they were doing a bunch of reruns on.
Even crazier enough, yesterday was James Roday's birthday. I saw that on Facebook. I was like, okay.
Happy belated birthday to him. But yeah, I think they were doing a bunch of reruns on TV, and I think I was sending Snapchats to Korbin, and then that may have inspired him.
You definitely did send me a video, I think a couple weeks back, but just even beyond that, like I knew we wanted to do Psych for this particular show, and we wouldn't want to do it without having Connor here. So great to have you.
Thanks, guys.
In terms of Psych itself, just to explain for the people that don't know, it's an American detective comedy drama directed by Steve Franks, and it premiered on the USA Network. Cody, I know you're a huge fan of USA television.
Oh yeah, shout out White Collar, great network.
The series stars James Roday Rodriguez. We'll get into that in a second. As Sean Spencer, he basically is pretending to be a psychic detective, because he couldn't reveal the fact that he's just really good at observing stuff due to like the things his dad taught him as a child. But he works for the Santa Barbara Police Department in California, using his heightened observational skills to solve crimes. He's pretending to be a psychic and pretending that he's getting all these different psychic visions and different things throughout the course of the series, which causes a lot of different comedy and different things to ensue. Co-starring alongside James Roday, Dule Hill, Timothy Osmondson, Maggie Lawson, and of course Corbin Burnson, who plays his father.
I'll kick us off. I really do like the cast. Dule Hill, obviously from Hole's fame. I think a really good pairing along with James Roday. I think their chemistry really carries the show.
And he does dig a hole in one of these episodes. I do want to say that.
That is true. Irony. But as well, yeah, Corbin Burnson, or as well, however you say his name. He's in Major League, so one of my favorite actors just from that movie alone. But yeah, overall, I'm a fan. Like you said, I mean, it's pretty simple premise. They keep it, pretty much the same, I feel like, tone throughout the entire series. And it's something that I feel like is a little bit hard to hate. Like you can find holes in these episodes, but the premise is what it is. It's kind of just fun. So yeah, I like the show in general for sure.
It airing on USA Network, I think it fit really well into kind of the comedies that they were putting out. Obviously, Monk was a little bit of a sister program to this throughout its run. They aired on the same night on USA. But I just love the premise as a whole. I think it's so fun that he's just like this incredible detective, this incredible, problem solver, deducive. He's basically, like Sherlock, but he has to mask it and hide it through this absurd idea of being a psychic detective.
I don't obviously watch as much TV or movies as y'all do. But I feel like I forget about this show, and every time it comes back up, I'm just like, oh, like realize how great it is once again. I think part of that is because when I was younger, my mom would watch this show a lot, and we had like some seasons on DVD. So like being able to going back and watching some of these and seeing those reruns recently kind of just like was a little nostalgic, because it was like, oh, I remember that from like watching that as a kid, but also it's just really good.
Yeah. And I mean, like this show ran for 8 seasons, 120 episodes from July 2006 to March 2014. And while it's not one that like is extremely popular and mainstream and well-known, and like nobody's talking about Psych usually, it has a very like dedicated subset of fans that appreciate it. And there's a group of people that really like turn out for Psych. And I've always enjoyed it. I wouldn't necessarily put myself up there as like the upper echelon of Psych fans. I'm not begging for the 3 movies they've released in the last 6 years, but like I've definitely always appreciated it, and it's cool to see that it's had a lasting power within a small community at the very least. I mean, for me, I remember watching this in middle school, and you guys both know, shout out to Vincent Patterson, fellow high school alumni of mine, but also Purdue alumni with us. We used to talk about Psych when we were like in middle school, and that was like just something me and my friends, like me and one of my middle school girlfriends, we would talk about Psych. Like, I don't know, this was like a growing up show for me, so it's definitely nostalgic to go back. And really like that rewatch my sophomore year, your guys' junior year, was like the first time I'd really come back to it. And then now this is again like the first time I've come back to it since then. So it was definitely cool to experience it through these 5 episodes. Have either of you guys seen the movies they've done?
I feel like I watched part of the first movie however long ago, but other than that, no, I haven't watched them in full.
I think possibly we had like all started the first movie together.
The first movie did come out in 2017, so it was out when we were living together. So I think we might have watched it, but we just didn't like it.
Yeah, I think we like stopped halfway through because we were like, this is really bad. But I'm kind of in the same boat. I haven't been into this, I feel like, in a while, probably since college. Maybe I've seen an episode or 2 here and there over the years, but I haven't really got into it. And I think, Corbin, you're playing down. I think you are a big psychic guy, or whatever the fandom calls themselves.
A psycho.
I like those, the psychos. I think you are a closeted psycho right now, and you just need to come out, because I think you are a big fan and you're downplaying it a little bit.
I don't use Facebook, but like Facebook is still on my phone, and I'll just like get on Facebook and scroll through it when I'm really bored. And because like when I got on Facebook, I was in middle school, and I was like, this is one of those things I was a fan of. I liked the like Psych Facebook page. So like I still get Psych shit in my Facebook timeline all the time. That's where I saw it was James Roday Rodriguez's birthday yesterday. So it's like it's managed to remain a part of my life, at least in that form, I guess.
Well, congrats on that. But yeah, I don't know what you're still doing on Facebook either, but that's
Yeah, I know. But yeah, they really, I never watched any of the movies. They released Psych 2, Lassie Comes Home in 2020. It was a Peacock pandemic drop. And then Psych 3, This Is Gus in 2021, which again is also on Peacock. I will say Jake Ross, shout out to Junior. He's watched all three of these movies, and he, I guess, is a fan of them. So there you go. I said I'm probably good on watching them.
I feel like I heard about the second one. I definitely did not know there was a third one.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like there's obviously a market for, like, they wouldn't be giving them money. Obviously, like 2020, 21, there was like a little bit of a boom in like streaming product and like what type of content can we produce, what old IP we can revitalize. But still, like, there obviously was an audience that they've done three of these. Like, there's been reason to come back, which is interesting. I do want to talk about the main character, Sean Spencer. He's credited throughout the run of the series as James Roday, but in the last couple of years, he's decided to take back his birth name, James Roday Rodriguez, which is just a really interesting story. I was reading about it, and he was just talking about how, like, early on in his career, when he was going as James Rodriguez, he just like wasn't getting parts, and he auditioned for Primal Fear for the Ed Norton role in it, and the casting directors were like, "We love you, but like we can't cast somebody like in this main role that's supposed to be a white guy as a character that's like as somebody named Rodriguez. Like, that just doesn't make sense." And then apparently he was like offered the role of like a gangster in the movie instead, and he was like, "What? No, I'm not going to do that." So he like struggled for many years trying to like make a name for himself as James Rodriguez, and he came to the point like right before Psych in the mid 2000s where he was like, "I won't get cast and stuff because then people will, either see me as just like a white guy that's got a foreign last name as like a fake diversity hire, or I just won't get cast and stuff because people are too racist to cast me." So he just decided to go by James Roday. He said, as like through the pandemic and just kind of like reestablishing a connection to his roots and talking to his father and, about his grandparents and the struggle they had in Texas, he decided to return the Rodriguez to his name, and now he officially goes by James Roday Rodriguez, which I think is very interesting, to say the least. But it's just one of those things that happens in Hollywood all the time. Like, people have to change their names to conform to a certain ideal or a certain set of beliefs that is being forced upon them by the industry.
Big ups to him for kind of fighting back against that, obviously. And yeah, I mean, it's well documented. Hollywood has been doing that for a long time, which obviously glad it's kind of changing it a bit, at least. Kind of interesting. I mean, Roday's it's not a bad choice for a last name. I think you could pick something better. And I mean, if he's going back to Rodriguez, just drop the Roday, I would feel like. But obviously, that's like how people know him.
Branding at the end of the day, I guess.
Yeah, just go James Rodriguez. I think I just dropped it completely. But that is a crazy story. I did not know that.
That's pretty interesting. We love 21st century racism.
Let's talk about the theme song. Kody, I know you're a huge fan, so why don't you kick it off?
Yeah. And this is my favorite category of this new little show as well. Just ranking all the theme songs. I'll tell you what, man, I did not think The Office really had much competition going deep into the show, but it's got major competition. Honestly, I mean, this may be the catchiest theme song I've ever heard in my life.
It's an earworm for sure.
Yeah, if it didn't chart like top 5 in its initial release, I'd be shocked. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. It's again, it kind of lives up to that criteria of I'm never gonna skip it, and I don't think like I could watch this series like 100 times. I legitimately don't think I would ever skip the song. It may be my favorite part of every episode, so I think pretty highly of it. But yeah, Van, how do you feel about the theme song?
Oh, I'm also a big fan of it. I agree that like it is not one that you skip, and it just kind of gets you hyped up and energized for the show to start. And not to mention, like, the lyrics go extremely well with the entire premise of the show, and
extremely
just, like,
thematic,
right? And then it's like when it hits like a psych you out in the end, and it comes up with the title, perfectly executed.
Yeah, it's great, both on like a musical level and even on a visual level as well. They continuously switch up the different things that you're seeing throughout the different series run. They drag and drop different images, but it is so catchy and it's so emblematic of what the whole show is about. Something that I also love about it is that it is sung by this band called the Friendly Indians, which is the band of the show's creator, Steve Franks. So it's the show's creator, Steve Franks, who wrote the theme song. So I guess it makes sense that it all fits in so perfectly.
And you guys touched on it, but I mean, the lyrics are awesome. Just those first two lines. I know, you know, that I'm not telling the truth. I mean, that's gold. Like, it literally sets up the premise of the show perfectly. And I don't think they could have done any better.
Throughout the series run, they did some really cool like spins on the opening theme. So like for the Christmas episode, they did like a Christmassy one that had like a Christmas backing, and there was a Spanish version for a specific episode, and they did a Bollywood one, and they a Boys to Men a cappella version, and there was a Chinese version, and there was Kurt Smith, who appears in one of our episodes, but in a different Kurt Smith appearance, who is the lead singer of Tears for Fears. He recorded a song and did it over. The themes for Twin Peaks was used at one point, like a version of that. There was a superhero version. Like they've just switched it up so many different times, which I love when a show can kind of like take a regular episode and do a little tweak to the main title sequence. It's unfortunate that our 5 episodes did not contain any of those, though.
Now that you mention it, I do remember them doing that, and I agree, it's pretty cool that they're able to like switch it up that way.
You kind of missed out. You should have picked one where it did change, but just bad pick from the guest, I guess, there.
Yeah, well, his one episode. So we do have to officially rank it. Kody, I know how you feel. I think I feel similarly. Connor, do you think Psych is better than The Office's theme song?
When I was thinking about this, I didn't think it was going to be as close as it was for me. I think everyone knows I'm not a fan of The Office, but I think I've been on record saying that the theme song of The Office is the best part of The Office. And it's all just downhill after it includes. But I am putting this at the top of the charts. Scrubs is at the bottom.
You hate Scrubs, yeah. We not a Laszlo Bane fan.
Nobody is. But yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I've talked about it already, but I do genuinely think it is better than The Office, which is going to be tough to even, topple that second place spot as we move along in this series, I think. But I think this will be staying at number 1 for a long time.
Absolutely. Let's move over to our episodes. Our first episode was the pilot, and it is titled Pilot. Kody, take it away. What did you think of the pilot?
I think it's good. I think it sets up the premise. Obviously, the core of the show is this friendship between Guster himself and Sean. And I think they did a great job setting that up. Also cool. I mean, I didn't remember a ton from the pilot. Obviously, I haven't seen it in forever. So kind of one of the first scenes being, Sean and his dad in that diner, I thought was a cool setup as well, kind of explaining eidetic memory and
how many hats.
Yeah, how many hats, which comes up again throughout the series, which I like. But yeah, in general, just a couple of plot points. I mean, why would the police department ever really hire these guys? It's my main question. Obviously, it's the premise of the show, so we have to get there somehow. Yeah, I don't know. To me, that kind of just seems unrealistic. And then the other glaring thing is, of course, the recast. I don't even know the girl's name in the first episode. It's kind of a coach new girl situation, I believe. But also, I have a hazy memory of the rest of the series. Does this girl ever return?
Is she there only for the first episode and then she's gone?
Jules is officially there by episode 2, so she's gone.
Okay. Well,
so it's like a coach situation, but it was just completely permanent, which kind of sucks for the girl who was cast in the pilot originally. Yeah, I mean, Jules not being there, I think, is weird, but I'd say overall the pilot's good. I mean, it sets up the premise that you get to know the core of the characters. I think it does its job pretty well.
Yeah, and they do like explain it away because they're basically like, oh, well, since her and Lassie were having an affair, she gets like transferred away or whatever. So
I guess that makes sense. But
I think it is a class. I think they made the right decision. I am confirming here she was in only the singular episode in 2006. Wow. I don't know specifically what it was, if they recast her, or if she had another project she had to leave for, because oftentimes the way it works is you film a pilot way in advance, you shop it around in different studios, it gets picked up. That maybe months in between the filming of that pilot and when the show actually gets purchased. So any number of things could have happened.
I think that's the girl from, and this just came to my head, but I think that's the girl from How I Met Your Mother.
She plays Natalie in 2 episodes. Yeah.
The sock monkey girl who beats his ass in the restaurant. So shout out to her. She went on to do some stuff. I don't think she's terrible.
Yeah, she's been a TV player. She was on like 20 episodes of House. She's was on an episode of Grimm, an episode of Grey's, an episode of Rizzoli and Isles, and she's on The Good Doctor. Like she's a worker. She gets her.
She's not bad.
She's still making her
I
money.
feel like
That's
they
good.
should have brought her back for an episode where like maybe she's the murderer or something. I think that would be fun.
Scorned by the lost love of Lassie.
That would have been fun, but missed opportunity. Maybe they'll do it for the 5th movie or
Hey,
something.
Cody, we do have a pitch coming up. So
I should have said
the door's still open.
I didn't even pitch that, but whatever.
I think the introduction of Maggie Lawson, which we obviously don't get to until much later, is extremely important to the show. Her chemistry with James Roday is off the charts. Funny enough, they like dated, but they dated only for the duration of the show. So they had a relationship from like
2006
to 2014. And that was it. Like it didn't last any longer than that, but they are incredible on screen. Even more incredible on screen are James Roday and Dule Hill, their chemistry, their relationship. That's really what this show is about more than anything, like Cody said. And I love their introduction. I love their just instant off the bat. They're best friends. They get along so well.
I think the biggest thing is that usually when you have pilots of TV shows, they're kind of awkward and kind of really like introductory and kind of don't really flow with the rest of the TV show. I feel like for this, you can watch it and feel like it's season 3. I feel like the way that they do it and how like witty and Sean's personality is on full display immediately, and Sean and Gus's relationship is at its seamless as well. So like you can think that it is a different season and not the pilot anytime you watch it. I honestly, when I watched it when we were watching them for this, I turned it on. I was like, oh, this is the pilot, because I had seen it a couple times and I just didn't realize that this was like the first episode. And that's kind of where I thought of that.
Yeah, I think there's just like an extremely strong understanding of character right off the bat. Like they knew who they wanted Sean and Gus to be. They knew like the relationship they wanted him to have with his dad. They knew exactly like the way Lassiter was going to be the antagonist throughout the series. So I think they just had like a really strong understanding of the structure that they wanted, and they were able to stick with it throughout, which I think is really great. The theme song actually doesn't play in this until it does play over the closing credits, which is fine. But that, I think that's another one of those like pilot things where it's like, it just has, Psych as the title card, because they hadn't filmed a whole season of a show. They didn't have all these, imagery to even use for a title sequence.
Yeah, it's a cool thing as well where they actually include like clips from the season, usually like a lot from the season finale or the last couple episodes, like in the early episodes too. So you like have seen those a couple times. Then when they do show up, it's like in context, which is cool, which happens in the finale, which we'll talk about.
I do love that the episode kind of ends with them like setting up the office, and that's kind of like, I think it's just like a perfectly crafted pilot in that way of like, you set up the whole premise of like, he's got to pretend to be a psychic and here's why he has to, and he's going to drag in his best friend, and then they're going to open this office, and then they just have this like cool detective agency, and that becomes like the main setting of the show moving forward, outside of like going to Gus's apartment or Sean's. Like, I hate that you see that shit in the pilot, because like I don't want to see these like where these characters live. Just show me the psych office and the police headquarters.
Also, the police department design I really like too. I think underrated part of the show is kind of those canopies and stuff. But yeah, really visually cool, I feel like.
Great open floor plan.
Yeah, agreed.
Let's move over to our guest selection, which is season 4, episode 16, Mr. Yin Presents. I guess we should start with Connor. Why'd you want to talk about this episode?
Yeah, this was one that like really not necessarily stuck with me, but I remember, as I mentioned, when I watched this as a kid, mainly because I was probably just scared because of like the whole theme of it and the like serial killer vibe and whatnot. So it kind of freaked me out. So probably stuck with me because of that. I think I have learned that I have like an affinity for shows or movies and such where the protagonist meets their match essentially. So as these two know, my 2 favorite movies are probably The Dark Knight and Infinity War. Those 2 show or movies where essentially the hero does not win, and you're kind of put up against someone as equally as good as you, and you kind of don't come away with the victory. And in this episode, he kind of pulls a Joker theme and then pulls his 2 loves away from him, and he has to choose which one to
this is a very
to
Dark
save.
Knight episode.
So it is.
Which one came first, this or The Dark Knight? I think it was definitely this, right?
This would have been like 2010 because it's season 4. So
Well, they just ripped off The Dark Knight, I guess.
That's unfortunate. But
well, they also ripped off the films of Alfred Hitchcock, which I do want to talk about. Is something that's really cool about this episode, and honestly, another episode that we're going to talk about also deals, very heavily in like movie motifs and movie themes. But I think it's super cool the way they integrate all the different Hitchcock stuff into this in terms of Mr. Yin doing it, and like the psycho kill of Mary's character is so perfectly executed, and just like all the different shots, and obviously the Vertigo reference with Jules up on the clock tower, or the clock tower in this case. I just think all that stuff is really great.
Agreed. That's probably my favorite part of the episode as well. The most cheesy and campy one, which I love, is the North by Northwest plane, where it's just some kid in the park with his plane. I love that. Oh, and then the rear window at the end too, where Sean kind of has the view of the entire scene.
Mhm.
I like that reference a lot as well. But I think this is a great pick for a specific episode. I know I was ragging on you earlier. It
I
does
appreciate
have
it.
just no problem. It does have just kind of a little bit of a different tone than I feel like a lot of the normal episodes. And this is one that definitely stuck out to me as well, of like one I remembered when we did originally, go through this series, just because it is like very serious and very emotional at the end as well. And yeah, I didn't even think about the whole Dark Knight Infinity War thing. That does make sense on why you would like this. And he kind of does mean his match, but I mean, they still do win at the end, I guess, in a sense. So not exactly the same, unfortunately. Both the girlfriends survived. Sadly.
He breaks up with the girl, so
Yeah,
his
it's
relationship is
also,
ruined.
I mean, there's just a ton going on in the episode, and I think maybe that's maybe crammed in a little bit too much at the end. Kind of just a reset for the remaining of the story, which I don't hate either. But great villains. I like Yang a lot too when they go and visit her. And then Mary's just such a weirdo. I think that's an interesting character too. But I need more information on Mr. Yin. There's a reveal at the end. I don't really remember. I have kind of restarted watching season 1. I'm not gonna lie. So I have a couple other episodes, but did they kind of reveal who it is in this episode?
They don't reveal. So that's the thing. I
Yeah.
want to. So Psych, I think of over the course of the series run, has like 2 main like multi-episode villains that I always identify. The one obviously being Carrot Yule's Despero, Princess
Yeah.
Bride boy, but then of course Yin and Yang is the other one, and there is further episodes that explain the rest of what happens. So while they do like win in the end, obviously they don't catch anyone, they don't figure out what happens. It's kind of more of just like a cliffhanger, and then later they're gonna discover that it's Yang's father. I think, right? That's what the reveal ends up being. That's what the
I
internet
think it
told
was
me
something
when I
like
looked it
that,
up.
yeah.
But the thing that you referenced at the end of this episode, it's revealed that like there's a picture of Yang and young Sean together, which is a strange thing that they try and throw in.
Kind of a weird reveal, and that's why I appreciate you guys clearing that up, because I was like, is this something bigger? Should I know what this is? But it's not really. It's kind of a weird off reveal. But yeah, I do like this episode a lot. I think having a really compelling villain like that and kind of integrating the Hitchcockian themes in it as well was kind of a perfect combination. So yeah, definitely a good pick, I think, for a favorite episode.
They play off like movie spoofs a lot. Spoiler alert, the next one that we talk about last night, Gus, is kind of like The Hangover. I know they do one for like Clue, and there are probably some other ones in there. But yeah, definitely I don't know if this is the first one, but definitely a big theme throughout the entire TV show.
Sean and Gus, or Sean specifically, loves his pop culture reference. And then beyond that, the show itself loves to make the pop culture reference. Like you said, Last Night Gus, which is our next one, is very Hangover-esque. The one after that, Nightmare on State Street, is filled with horror movie references. So I do love the line of she gets overly stimulated by color, and then Gus goes, "What about my face, Sean?"
Yeah.
Gus always has the best, just like concerned jokes.
Gus was low-key the MVP of the episode as well. I mean, him holding back the clock tower on his own, I think needs to be mentioned at least. Just the most underrated character, I think, in the show in general, too. So yeah, shout out Gus. He's got great one-liners.
Something I wrote down for the pilot, even the whole like reason they discover who the killer is because Gus finds medication for like dog bites in the cabinet, and like he uses that and conveys that to Sean, and that's how he figured. So it's like Gus is always, he's an integral part of these investigations.
Shout out Guster. Underrated.
Bert.
Bert.
All right, our next episode, season 6, episode 2, Last Night Gus, is the highest rated of the entire series with a 9.6 on IMDb. So like we said, this episode is very much like they wake up, they don't know what happened last night, and they're trying to piece it together. But also, you know, there's a dead body and a murder like there's all these, you know, extraordinary circumstances. This is really our first episode that we get. Well, this is our first episode where we get the character of Woody, which I think is great. He's a later season addition. He plays the kind of the coroner, but he's just like the most off the wall, weird comedic relief character in the whole series. And I think he gets a real chance to shine throughout this episode.
Yeah, I like this episode. I think Woody kind of just overall, I don't know. He's kind of, like you said, kind of just a kooky character. I think this episode, it does work. I'm a bit surprised this episode is rated as high as it is. I mean, 9.6 is pretty ridiculous, but there's just a lot of, I think this is kind of just like the smoothest episode comedy wise that you can do for this show. And it kind of like the cast is I think working on all cylinders together.
It does a great job of highlighting all supporting members extremely well.
Yeah, I was gonna say especially Lassie, because I feel like usually he's against odds with, you know, this duo, but he's in it with them this time, which I love, and they're kind of keeping Juliet, you know, out of it, which normally is not the norm, I would say. So love seeing Lassie kind of work together with the boys.
A really cool detail with that is like throughout the beginning of the episode, he like calls them Sean and Gus, because it's like they're on he's like actually respects them and is on the same playing field, but he would never like ever call him Sean. It's always Spencer.
Yeah, no, shout out Timmy Oliphant as well. I think a really fun actor, and he doesn't have that much to do, I feel like, throughout the series. This episode he does. My favorite moment that I want to shout out to, well, there's a couple, but the first one is, of course, the donut reveal of them knocking that down. And it's just the constant callback of being like, oh, like that didn't happen. Let me see the footage. And then the footage is even worse than they could imagine. That happens a couple times. And then the weird slow-mo explosion with them jumping off the balcony. It's weird, but I think it really works, especially for this episode. And that is probably my favorite moment of the episode as well. But yeah, a lot of really small, like super fun stuff in this one for sure.
They had 2 of those slow-mo.
Them walking into the bar.
Yeah, and I was slightly confused, but I was like, all right, we'll go with it. Those are good ones, Cody. But do you know what the best part of this episode is?
Oh, tell me.
Do you remember what the killer's name was?
I don't. Actually, I have that later on in the show, and I couldn't remember his name, and I was too lazy to look it up.
Leroy Jenkins.
Oh, that's right. Leroy.
Weird, like such a weird reference for them to make. So strange, and it's great because when Sean like says it, he's like Leroy. He does it. I mean, it's awesome.
Shout out Leroy. He deserves it.
Like all the jokes in this are extremely tight. Like whether it's Gus getting his chance to finally say, you know, that's right. You know, the last night Gus had some serious game, and the fucking like Ed Lover showing up for whatever reason. They bring up the Bud from the Cosby Show thing, which is a running joke. Like they're firing all cylinders. I think drugged Gus at the end when the guy's pointing the gun at him is just comedy gold. Dooley Hill, just get this guy, give this man an Oscar. I mean, come on, he's deserved it since Holes. He needs his big break.
Deserved it. Yeah, I think the one thing this episode was missing was the Holes reference, which they do, you know, a couple times in the series as a whole. But I think that would have been the perfect cherry on top of this episode. But yeah, unfortunately, didn't get it.
Also, just like when Corbin Burnson Henry finally shows up in the episode, that's like also just another, like he's not there the whole time, and then it's like, oh wait, he wakes up in this motel and he's not wearing pants, and it's just another great moment of comedy where it's just like he just keeps firing.
Yeah, and for some reason he never gets his pants. Like even I think one of the last jokes of the episode is they're all sitting in that room, and the chief's like, "Are you still not wearing pants? Like, what is going on?" So he always has a later addition to the episodes, but his comedy, I think, does bring this series up a lot. He's a strong addition, I think, to the cast overall.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Oh yeah, he's great. Something that I think is a little bit unfortunate about this, and really like all these episodes, is like Juliet does not, like, none of these are Juliet centered episodes. And like this one specifically, like she's on the outs. And even though like her and Sean are finally dating at this point in season 6, it's just like none of these episodes really get to tell her story, unfortunately. So I think that's probably our biggest miss out throughout these 5 episodes.
I definitely like Juliet as a character. I'm glad they made the switch back on the second episode of the entire series. I think the ending scene where they have a shootout in a 5-foot apartment is pretty great.
Infield, nobody can hit each other. Like
When Gus goes, they're shooting that guy's TV. That's your TV.
That's your TV, buddy.
Shout out Guster. Again, he always comes through.
He's the guy. Him and the blueberry. They'll always save the day, even if it gets destroyed. Not sure how they were still driving that thing around.
Just a scratch.
Let's move on to our second to last episode, which is also the second to last episode of the entire series. The lowest rated episode at a 6.2, season 8, episode 9, A Nightmare on State Street. Whereas Mr. Yin Presents was a Hitchcock episode, this is all about classic horror tropes. It references countless zombie movies. It references the Evil Dead franchise, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Nightmare on Elm Street with the title, and the whole, dream thing, Silence of the Lambs. There's a but solution in the basket scene, Children of the Corn with the creepy kids at the school. It's just like all this classic horror iconography that gets constantly brought up. I also love that Bruce Campbell is playing the character, the sleep therapist character, because one, he gets previously referenced in our Mr. Yin Presents episode. Sean says, "Oh, I read Bruce Campbell's book and it's better than yours." And then he appears as an actor in this one. And in 2, he of course is, longtime Sam Raimi collaborator, which takes us back to our episode that we did, the original Spider-Man, all the way back in season 1 of KHAP. So another connection there. Shout out Bruce Campbell.
Look at that. How convenient.
Shout out season 1 of KHAP as well. Go check out that episode. Classic.
This episode, though, is not good.
No.
I was going to say that. I'm not a massive fan of this. I think having Bruce Campbell there does make it a little bit better, just because it does, it hits it really hard on the head. The entire episode of, they're doing the classic horror movie tropes. Like, we get it. But Bruce Campbell being there is fun. I think this episode just got a lot going on. Kind of just like an incoherent plot. It's kind of like they're trying to do Inception with horror dreams, and I just got lost and stopped caring where it was at one point. And yeah, also William Zabka's there as well. Hashtag sweep the leg. But yeah, kind of just a weird episode, and I kind of just like lost track halfway through and didn't care enough to try and figure it all out.
Yeah,
I was definitely watching this after work yesterday and fell asleep during it because I got so confused and slightly like.
What were your dreams like?
What were my dreams like? I just dreamt of getting hit with a giant fly swatter.
Schmack. Yeah, that joke I just don't think really hits. No pun intended.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but yeah, I had to go back and see what actually happened and how the episode concluded because it just like confused the heck out of me trying to figure out what was part of Gus's dream, what was part of the actual like investigation, and it just was not doing it justice. So
I think the investigations that they have are always super interesting, and they're like the ways that Sean solves them is always super creative, and it manages to constantly innovate and come up with these new ideas, these new cases. The case in this is just so nothing. It doesn't have like any concern for it at all. And I think that's what makes this episode so bad is it puts the case in the backseat and it's like doing this whole dream thing. And when it's trying to finally wrap up and explain like whatever the fuck happened to William Zabka, like it just loses you. And it's bad.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't even remember what the case was. So
it's like
I watched it yesterday. So it tells you.
It's like they're dealing with one case, but then they happen upon it. Like, I don't even know. It just turns out that Zabka has gambling debts basically, and he gets killed by a mobster.
Oh. I think I missed that completely. Yeah, hashtag sweep the leg. And as well, it's just a weird penultimate episode for the series as well, I think. I think maybe they just kind of overthought a little bit. I think they just tried to give a really cool Gus episode, maybe to end that off. But it's him just basically screaming and running around for like 45 minutes, which, it does get a little bit old by that point. But yeah, still not a terrible episode, I don't think. Maybe whatever it was, 6.2, 6.4 is a little bit harsh, but yeah, not the best this show has to offer by far, I would say.
I will say I'm a big fan of a nice Gus scream and run away, but I agree. It happened a little too often this episode.
I think that's probably why they did it too, because everyone's like, "Oh, I love when Gus like freaks out when he sees a dead body or something." But I think that it's just a little bit of overkill.
Yeah, you know, both of this episode and the finale are really concerned about like wrapping up Gus's character. And then in the end, they kind of just like are like, yeah, actually, we don't really give a shit. Like, they're just going to be together and be best friends forever. But like, I think you can see this episode as like, because the whole thing is like Sean keeps leaving him in his dreams and he has this like fear. So like I think there's like a cool idea and theme there of like the show is coming to a close. You have to like reckon with that, and you're these characters are leaving you, and like Sean is gonna be abandoning you, Gus. Like you can feel it happening, but then like it just does not stick that landing whatsoever because it tries to like revert back to the whole like to solving the case, and then it doesn't even really wrap up or explain like what's going on with Gus at the end of the day. Like it's just like kind of it's like it's all good.
Yeah, he has like another nightmare to end the episode, and Sean just comes over and they drink milkshakes, and that's how it ends.
Well, and then the final shot we got to talk about, which is the most camp thing ever, is they turn to the screen and they've got these fucking colored contact lenses in. Oh, it's scary! Woo!
Yeah, great ending. It is kind of an interesting theme, I guess. I didn't think about this of it being like, oh, Sean's gonna leave Gus. I mean, that is pretty much what happens in the finale, but it's not like touched on at all. So, and like, I don't think him having nightmares is really talked about at all before this episode either. So, kind of just a weird outlier, I think, altogether.
We'll keep track of the guest stars in this episode. We had William Zabka, Bruce Campbell, and then also Kurt Smith again shows up and says he's listening to his own song. And he's like, it's very Rob Thomas of me.
Oh,
so 3 guest stars in this one. We'll move over to season 8, episode 10, the finale of the show, titled The Breakup, which has some guest appearances from Billy Zane of notably Titanic fame as kind of the villain of the episode. And then Val Kilmer makes a like one-shot cameo, which when I saw, I was like, I had no memory of that happening whatsoever.
Yeah, I did not either. It's kind of just, and that was like a character who I think was mentioned a bunch of times throughout the series.
They constantly bring up like, oh, Detective Dobson, this detective, like he's but you never see him. So like it works out as a cool moment. And I do have a little bit of background on this. So the whole thing is that throughout the series, Sean is constantly talking about William Zabka and Val Kilmer as like his 2 favorite actors. So they got Zabka to come in for the penultimate episode and be like the final guy who gets killed or whatever. And then they get Val Kilmer to do a one-shot cameo because it's Val Kilmer and you're not going to get him to show up for more than that. Apparently Dule Hill had like a friend of a friend who knew Val Kilmer, and he was like on the phone with him, and he was just like, I just put him on the spot. I was like, are you coming on the show or what? He was like also on a cross-country show tour doing like the Citizen Twain on stage, and Rodriguez like came to the show to like have a face-to-face with Val Kilmer and like really like went up to him and was like, you got to come. Like, we need you to make sure this cameo happens. And they got it. So Kilmer said it was easier to just do it rather than dealing with James Roday Rodriguez constantly pestering him.
I mean, why is Val Kilmer all high and mighty all of a sudden? I mean, what is he doing? He's not actually busy. Kind of weird, but yeah, I think that's cool to have him on if they really wanted to have him on that much. And yeah, it was a fun little scene, I think, at the end of the episode too. So I dig it.
I hadn't picked up on them mentioning like Officer Dobkins or whatever his name was, so I was very confused when that happened. So yeah, that was my take at the end of that.
Fair. But in general, I do like this episode. I think, and going back to what I said a bunch earlier too, but it really does highlight, what is the true, I think, backbone of the show, and that's, Gus and Sean's relationship. That's the main focus of this episode. And I think it's a really good ending. It has a weird start where I was like, why is Sean like narrating into a camera? I don't really like this, but it does have a cool payoff, kind of he didn't know how to tell Gus that he's leaving. And like that's a believable way of how he would do it with everything. So I do kind of like that incorporation of kind of a different, just style of how you're going to do the finale. And yeah, a lot of little fun moments too. I really like the line of we bought a zoo lied. I think that's pretty funny. And then, I mean, of course, the engagement at the end. I don't know. I'll definitely throw this over to you guys, but I feel like it's not really necessary. And then like the ring getting stolen at the end is kind of just like, what the fuck was that for? I'm not the biggest fan of that. What do you guys think about the engagement, I guess?
Ending the show on an engagement, I think, is the right move. I think this show, you're wanting to see their relationship blossom from episode 2 to the finale. So, he gets to have his moment with Gus at the end, and yes, he needs to have his moment with Juliet as well, where they get engaged. I think it's really unfortunate. I had like totally forgotten that she like leaves and goes to San Francisco throughout the final season, and she's not even in the second to last episode at all. She doesn't even appear. And then in this one, she's just really just shows up at the end and is on phone calls with Gus, which again is just like, I think it's really unfortunate that that's like the direction that they took with that character. I guess it was like contributing to the nature of it ending and having to have like Sean leave Santa Barbara. But yeah, I just think it kind of just a bad plot decision. I always hate it when you like move one character away and they're like doing a weird like long distance relationship thing.
What do you think about the ring getting stolen for no reason?
That is dumb. Yeah, I think that's stupid. Connor, what do you think?
I thought it was pretty accurate with the crime rate in San Francisco nowadays. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind it ending on a nice engagement, kind of tie the knot on their relationship and kind of bring it full circle. I didn't necessarily mind it. I thought it was good to kind of bring them together and kind of have a happy ending, I guess.
I don't know. I just feel hesitant on it because I feel like he's moving to San Francisco for like he's leaving all these people behind, and then like
you just think that's enough.
Yeah, and then there's like 5 minutes left in the episode, and he's like, "Oh, they have this big thing where Gus is basically proposing to her as well." I don't know. My opinion means nothing, but I thought it was kind of weird. But I did like the finale in general, just because it does focus on the core friendship of the show, which is the only important thing in my opinion. So yeah, good finale. I think a lot better than the penultimate episode, no doubt about that.
What do you guys think about the detective that they brought in to replace Juliet?
Watching 5 episodes just randomly, I had no idea who this person was, why she was there, or what was going on. So I was very confused. But shout out, his name's blanking on me for becoming the next the junior detective.
Buzz McNabb, baby.
Miss McNabb. But yeah, the female detective that is coming in and being like a new, I didn't even pick up her name. A new superstar. I had no idea what was going on with that.
Yeah, it's definitely confusing when you take it out of context. And I was also kind of trying to figure like, I was like, what even happened to Juliet? Like, I remember her, she like kind of leaves, but I don't know when or why, or I still don't even really know why.
Well, I think it has something to do with the chief. Like she left.
Yeah. I think, Chief Vic wants her to come with, I'm pretty sure. Right?
Yeah. But this new Miss Goody Two Shoes, I mean, she knows everything at all times. She's kind of like a Sean 2.0 out here. But she doesn't even have superpowers. So you could have said like 10 different names and I would have never in a million years guessed Betsy. You could have given me like Betsy versus any other name.
I guess Lassie probably calls her Detective Brannigan, but still, even then, like
yeah, that's fair. But that is a cool moment, I think, at the end. Officer What's His Face. I mean, he's in the pilot too, kind of pilot to finale. His arc is kind of cool as well. They said it would be like the lowest test score of all time to be a detective, which I thought was a funny line. But it's cool as well to see Lassie in the head seat as well. I think his arc from the pilot to the finale is pretty full circle as well.
He also has a kid now. I didn't know that because in the end his scene on that. But
yeah, he gets a woman and a child. Yeah, doesn't he get married? I think he gets married at the end of season 7, and that is like when Juliet discovers that Sean isn't actually psychic, is like that episode.
Oh, okay. I do remember there being like late season drama at some point in time, but I've never really watched those episodes. I think one really unfortunate thing is that I thought it was cool that we just so happened to have season 8, episode 9 and the finale, like the 2 leading up to the finale, back to back. But to add on to why Nightmare on State Street was so bad, like it gave no context to like helping wrap up the show.
It doesn't really fit in the context.
No. So I was really excited at first when I realized that. I was like, oh, okay, so like we're gonna watch these out of order, but at least I'll get some context, like watching 2 episodes back to back, and then
it could have been episode 1 of the season. Like it could have literally been anywhere in the season.
Yeah.
So not helpful whatsoever.
It's also crazy that like, because this finale is the second highest rated episode of the TV show. It's got a 9.4, but it's crazy that like diametrically you have like the lowest rated episode at a 6, and then the finale people at least still stuck around with and loved. I think that's a little bit of just like, finale bump a little bit, because I think the episode's solid, but it's definitely not in the upper tier of Psych episodes.
I think there are definitely ones that are much better than that.
Also, like, that's got to be one of the biggest jumps in TV history from episode to episode, I would think. 6.2 to 9.4 or whatever. That's pretty wild, I feel like, IMDb wise. So nice little trivia there. I like that a lot.
Any other final thoughts on the finale, guys?
Gus is the GOAT.
Let's move over to our top 5s. Kody, you want to take it away? Give us your top 5 from these 5 episodes.
Yeah, I'll kick us off. My top 5 Letterman-esque list. I'm going to bring a fun one to the table today. I'm going to rank the top 5 killers from the Psych episodes. We're going to start off at number 5, and it's going to be the mustache guy from the finale. I think he brought some fun stuff to the table, some one-liners, him, having Gus and Sean at point blank, and then Sean throwing whatever that dust was in his eyes.
Cinnamon flaxseed.
Cinnamon flaxseed. Thank you, Corbin. Them hijacking the student driver Carswell, I think was fun, and then obviously Corbin Burns and taking him out. Decent little villain. He'll come in at 5. Number 4, we're gonna go the old man from episode 1. Kind of just wrong place, wrong time for old Gramps here. And the dog ratted him out. So kind of just tough look overall, but decent little character. I didn't hate him. Moving swiftly along. I didn't have his name originally, but thanks to Vano, it's going to be Leroy Jenkins. He's not really in the episode too much in obviously the highest rated episode, but I think he's pretty good. The shootout at the end, brings some depth in his character, and he's one of the most wanted men in Santa Barbara, so you got to put him high or he's going to come after me. Coming in at number 2, I'm actually going to slot Yang in here just because I don't know who Yang is, so I don't feel comfortable putting him there. But yeah, like Yang's a badass. That scene where they go and just like talk to her in the prison, like she's still pretty scary in my opinion. So got to have her up there. And then number 1, it's someone we have not even talked about, and I'm a bit shocked Vandal didn't bring her up. But it's the hot daughter from episode 3. She's making moves on Gus, and yeah, she's by far the most intriguing villain, I think, in these episodes. So don't know her character name as well, but shout out to her. She's my number 1 villain.
He kind of cheated and used some accomplices rather than the actual villains, but yeah.
Well, she was the accomplice. I mean, Yang murdered people too. What are you talking? Just not.
But she wasn't the killer from that episode.
Yeah, but I don't even know who's Yang, dude. I don't know.
Mr. Yin.
Yeah, whatever. Yin Yang. I don't know, but Yang's definitely, I'd say, the OP of Yin Yang. So shout out Yang.
Chaos versus order, Kody. Beautiful. Great top 5 list.
Thank you.
Connor, what's yours, man?
I got a good one for y'all. For those who don't know, they have a nice little Easter egg in every single episode of this show, and it's about pineapples. There's a mention of pineapple or an actual pineapple in every single show, whether it be like an image of it or a design or a physical pineapple. And if you go to psychusa.fandom.com, they have a list and clips.
Very helpful.
From every single one in the show. But for my ranking, I'm going to go number 5 is the Nightmare on State Street episode. For one, just to really hammer home how bad that episode was, and also hit it with Gus just kind of goes inside after being in the TV van, and it's like shaken, turn into like black and white, and there are just a couple like half-eaten pineapples on the counter. So nothing too great. For number 4, which I was kind of disappointed by, is the breakup, the finale. The pineapple in this episode is just like on the windowsill in Henry's apartment when Sean goes there for some reason. I feel like they could have done much better with it to kind of reference it, bring out like a full pineapple like they did for the first episode. Spoiler alert. But I think it would have been great if they like brought it up when he was proposing, or even like when they get in the car after the ring was stolen and they reference the first episode. Spoiler alert again. And he mentions like, oh, hey, you finally cut this up for the car ride or something, and go off. So that would have been great to see, but they really dropped the ball, in my opinion. Coming in at number 3 is Last Night Gus. This one was close between 2 and 3, but in this one, it's when the quote unquote hot daughter, or hot accomplice that Kody mentioned, is drugging Gus in his apartment. The pineapples are on the design on the glasses. And supposedly, according to this website, they're also on the shot glasses at the bar early on in the episode. So I brought it down for having 2 references in one because that's not fun. At number 2, we're going with with the Mr. Yin Presents. Creative location. Do either of you know where it is?
I did not spot it, but I did find it in the IMDb trivia, so I do know where it is.
So when they're in the park and they're running up the stairs, Lassie and Juliet are running up the stairs to try and track down Mr. Yin. It is at the top of the fountain that they go to. So a unique place, and kind of unexpected during like a high intense episode. Coming in at number 1 is the pilot, the OG, the first time it's shown. It's great. It's unexpected, and Sean like presents it in a really witty way that he does. With everything else, kind of adds to the seamless character development off the start. But they're essentially in Gus's apartment, and he just pulls it out from around the corner. He's like, "You want me to cut this up for the road?"
I'm driving. Where are your keys? Never mind. I got them. Ooh. Should I slice this up for the road?
I love that initial one. It's such a great like little one-liner right before the scene cuts to kind of wrap things up and give you a laugh before the commercial. I read online, I don't know how true this is, that was like an improvised thing where there was just like a pineapple on the set and he like picked it up and added that on at the end of the scene. And then because of that moment was then they spurned like, okay, let's make this a thing where we continually put it in all the episodes. And then it also became like a huge marketing material for them. Like if you find like Psych merchandise, there's pineapples on it all throughout. So there's there was also like, I feel like in the early 2010s, like a big, maybe even like the mid 2010s, like a big pineapple push. Like it became like really popular, like pineapple designs and shit. And maybe Psych started it all. Who's to say?
Psych starting national trends out here. I see it.
It's also references Sean's go-to housewarming gift is a pineapple. You should always bring it for a housewarming. My top 5 is going to be my top 5 Sean observations. There was a ton to choose from throughout the series run. One of my favorite things is how they kind of establish the way his like observational skills work very early on in the pilot episode. And then they stick through it, like stick with that methodology and that kind of style throughout the entire series. It's, the camera pans, it like the item gets highlighted. It's got a cool little sound effect, and it's just like super consistent. And it's also super clear and concise of this is how it works. This is how Sean understands things. And even when you may not put the pieces together like he does, it's always very clear what he's seeing, and then you kind of get to follow along with it. So my top 5 observations, number 5 is going to be the notes in William Zabka's trash can. Now, the reason specifically I wanted to put this one in the top 5 is not because I really think it's that great of an observation or that great of a movie moment. It is during the Nightmare on State Street episode, so it's not, a great case. But it's funny because he refers to them as booty call notes. And that's really the only thing is he's just like, William Zabka had booty call notes from the woman in his trash can. And then he realizes that it's actually just like she's teaching him how to read, which is also just a strange plot point that they throw in, that like Zabka's character is an adult that never learned how to read, and it just all strange all around.
He's a teacher?
That is number 5. Well, he's a PE teacher, so.
Well, you'd think they'd have a reading test, but yeah, go ahead.
Number 4 is going to be in one of the How Many Hats scenes. It's when Sean and his dad go to the bar and he asks him how many hats are in the room. But my favorite part about this is that he recognizes that the cowboy hat is no longer in the room. He closes his eyes. He's going around how many hats, he counts them. And his dad asks him, well, what about you forgot one? And he said, no, I didn't, because the cowboy hat walked out from when I closed my eyes to when I got to the final end of the count, which is just enough. Like that's like in the pilot episode, it's like, oh shit, like this is the power that this dude has. Like he has this strong of observational skills, which I think is a great thing to establish very early on. Number 3 is the giant yin yang symbol that he discovers out of the formation of the woman's body in the rock. I think it is a ridiculous one because it's like, one, how did you possibly like see this as a yin yang symbol. Even when it like zooms out, you're like, it's a bit of a stretch that it's a yin yang symbol, but it's because it's so ridiculous that I kind of love it, and that they even like do the little drawing. So it's gonna make the top 5.
I just noticed you're wearing a nice yin yang hat to honor it right now.
There you go. It's a little Mac Miller swimming hat, but you know, yin yang on the. I'm got to support Mr. Yang. Number 2 for me is not an actual observation, but it's when Sean puts his finger to his head and goes, "What happened last night?" And he can't remember anything, and you just get the like, basically it's because he was, you know, drugged or whatever, so he has this blackout moment. But I just think that's a really cool thing where it's like it's doing the traditional, oh, we're gonna go back into Sean's memory and see what he's lived through, see what he remembered, but then it kind of twists it and turns it on his head that he can't remember anything, and you just get all these different flashes, which I think is a cool, you know, change of the style. And then number 1, also in the pilot, is at the end of the episode, Sean solves the case. He's talking to his dad. He looks over to his dad's front seat, and there's a newspaper clipping of Sean kind of being in the paper of, oh, you know, this guy's psychic detective solves case, which I just think is a really sweet and awesome little character building moment where it's like Sean and his dad have never had a great relationship. They still don't really get along in a super great way, but it's this little thing to show like, hey, he's really proud of what Sean's doing right now. And even though he says he doesn't support it, he's going to be there to help him. And he's going to be there to, you know, he's proud that he formed his son into this kind of, you know, little detective.
Very wholesome.
Had to be number one for the wholesomeness.
Great ending to the list there. Yeah, the yin yang one specifically, that would probably be my favorite too. It is a little over the top, but I think that is really cool, just like set design as well. So good list.
Let's move over to our pitch. I'll get us started here. I don't really have anything too in depth. Obviously, we have mentioned they've done 3 TV movies following the conclusion of this. So in case that they have, you know, done any of our pitches, don't sue us for copyright infringement. In the finale, they reference Monk, which I said is kind of the sister show of Psych. It does take place in San Francisco, and in Chief Vic at the end is like, oh, we already have a guy that solves crimes, and he's in there, you know, alphabetizing the pantry or whatever, which is like a Monk reference. So my pitch is, let's do it. Full Monk Psych crossover. We want Tony Shalhoub, Men in Black star himself, now star of Marvelous Miss Maisel, giving me Monk and Psych in a crossover. And if we can't have that classic San Francisco show crossover, let's get some other classic San Francisco properties. Full House, bring them together with, I want to see Uncle Jesse and Psych solve a case. Maybe That's So Raven, another great one. Ant-Man, can Scott Lang and Sean Spencer maybe do a little something? Dawn of the Planet of the Apes takes place in San Francisco. Maybe Sean, you know, has to fight a monkey. I don't know. There's lots of San Francisco properties that we can pull into for a little future Psych crossover.
Yeah.
I think every single one of those are absolutely great at this, and they should run them all.
It's the world of IP that we live in. It only makes sense to build upon these franchises and create more crossovers. This would be bigger than the Men in Black 21 Jump Street crossover. We need the Psych Planet of the Apes crossover.
That's a hard one to beat, but fair enough.
What's your pitch, Kody?
Yeah, a couple ideas. I feel like, I mean, most of these in general, you could just do like a 1 episode sort of spin-off like they do for a lot of other ones. Just a couple rattling off the bat here. I was thinking Psych on a safari. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Get some animals involved in some crime. Psych in space. I mean, that's obvious. I don't know how they didn't do that one.
You heard about Pluto? That's messed up.
You heard about Pluto? It's messed up, right?
Yeah, true. The 9 planets. He keeps mentioning it too, so that makes sense. That honestly, that should be a pitch for their movie. When the Fast and Furious eventually go to space, just fucking Psych should be there for some reason in the space station. But past that, I thought as well, like pairing him up with a detective. Sherlock Holmes would of course be a fun one. Maybe do like weird time travel episode, or just like a period piece where they're solving with Sherlock. Another one, and I mean, we're already talking superheroes. I know Connor likes Batman, so might as well throw him into the fray here too.
The world's greatest detective versus the world's greatest detective.
You'd have like a Riddler or a Joker, I guess. Either would kind of work, where, you know, Sean's helping Batman, you know, kind of do all these weird riddles and stuff. I think that'd be fun. But my actual pitch, it's gonna be Psych and the Muppets. Did they do like a musical episode?
They did do Psych the musical as like a special between season 8 and season 9. I
Yeah.
love it. Kody, we might need to start a whole show that's just watching TV show musical episodes because there's so many great ones.
Yeah, that is true. I feel like that is a pretty common trope. But yeah, I think the Muppets is perfect for this too. I mean, they even had a kind of a detective-based Muppet movie in Muppet Most Wanted. So I think it's perfect. You pair up Kermit the Frog and Sean, and pretty much they can solve any case, I would say. So that'd be my big pitch. I honestly don't know why they haven't done that either yet. But yeah, there's a ton of stuff I think that you could cross over with this pretty easily and make a lot of good content.
Connor, what do you think, man?
Yeah, man, I guess it's good that I'm going last because I took a much more serious approach to this.
We appreciate that more than Muppets and Psych or
So,
So the
Swans.
Muppets
I
are
mean-
dead serious, bro. What are you talking about?
I took a very basic approach to this and kind of just following Sean and Juliet after the engagement, maybe many years down the road, and maybe they have a child that has inherited Sean's gift or maybe his own or their own gift, and kind of maybe Sean and Juliet are out of the game as Henry was, and this child gets into the same concept of an idea that forces them back into it, and just brings a whole gang back together around this kid. So that was my pitch. Pretty basic, no Muppets or Ant-Man, but I feel like it's a pretty good idea.
I like
Yeah.
it. Look, classic legacy sequel right there, action.
Oh,
I mean, yeah, no, I actually really like that though, because I think like you could do a whole really interesting thing of like how does Sean handle fatherhood and trying to be different from the mistakes that his own dad made, but then also maybe trying to develop these observational skills, because it's like the show kind of has to deal with that throughout of like, yes, Corbin Bernsen's character Henry was a bad dad, but he also like made Sean into the detective and the person he is today. And now, he's kind of able to, try and reconcile a little bit of the mistakes he made as a father throughout the series run. But I think doing something with Sean and Juliet's kid, I mean, it, like Kody said, it's the perfect legacy sequel, makes sense sort of thing.
yeah, and hey, maybe since Gus is there as well, maybe he finally settles down and finally gets a line to work on a lady, and maybe they have a kid of their own, and you just follow little Sean and little Gus going around everywhere.
I would watch that.
Solving maybe
they-
school crimes.
Yeah, there you go. Or maybe they team up with the Muppets.
Yes. There we go. We found it.
How many? Yeah, it's like let's put a poll out. How many people would watch a Psych Muppets spinoff where it's just Dule Hill and James Roday's kids as the main characters, not actually our original characters, and then the Muppets? I think that'll sell.
We're doing
I
like
think it's a great
Muppet
idea.
Babies or the actual Muppets though?
Nah, the OG Muppets. They're just completely outdated. But yeah.
What about Elmo? Can you be
Oh,
there?
hell no.
Sesame
Scrubs
Street.
did the Sesame Street episode, so I guess that
Oh,
they'd be into it.
Jesus.
I haven't seen it.
Typical.
All right, let's move on to our last category, more or less. Would you guys watch more than these 5 episodes?
It's a tough one because I've already seen most of the series, but I'm definitely gonna say more. Like I mentioned earlier, I mean, I did actually continue watching season 1 just because I was interested in kind of the rest of that because I forgot most of it. So yeah, it's kind of similar to the Scrubs, where I feel like I will continue watching this show slowly over time, but yeah, definitely more than 5 for me.
I agree. As I mentioned before, I don't watch as much TV and stuff, so to see this like having reruns on TV or whatever was really cool and kind of reminded me how much I enjoy the show. So yeah, I'm probably with Kody. If he allows me to keep mooching off his Peacock account, I'll go ahead probably start watching the entire series again and really watch it all the way through, because I don't think I don't know if we completely finished it all together when we were watching it back in 2015. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I would definitely say you should go watch more than these 5 episodes. I will say, like, these 5 together, I could understand watching them and not really wanting to pick up the rest of the show because, like, the finale is, like, not the greatest finale of all time. Obviously, the 4th episode is, like, the 4th one we watch is, like, so bad. The pilot is just okay. The Mr. Yin Presents one is in the middle of a, like, 3-4 part story. And then, the Last Night Gus is really the only one that if I would just show maybe that singular episode, and then you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm definitely locked in for this whole series. But, definitely watch more Psych. People need to know more about Psych. It doesn't get enough love. Not enough pineapples out there.
True, more pineapples, and I think Peacock's a little underrated too. Vano, you can definitely keep using my account.
This has become a Peacock podcast, essentially.
Hey,
our last two movies have been on Peacock. We've got this.
got good TV. I
Wait.
just checked out the John Wick franchise as well on there. So, decent little streaming service. It's got some good stuff. It's got Tar too. I mean, some Oscar winners as well. Great.
I wouldn't be surprised if our spinoff ends up on Disney Plus though. So
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
If the Muppets are involved, definitely.
it's on about the same level of this recent Mandalorian season in quality, equally bad.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
I would be remiss to mention, Corbin Burnson, Henry Spencer. He does, have the same name as me. And, I don't want to say that I wasn't named after him, but like I also kind of very much was named after Corbin Burnson in a certain way. Like my parents heard about the name because of Corbin Burnson, the actor, and they found it. And then they're like, my mom was like, oh yeah, let's use that. So, there's another final connection for this episode.
They did spell it differently though. Thankfully for KHAP. Thankfully for those initials. But yeah, shout out Corbin.
Our whole brand could have been ruined.
True. Everything would have been different.
If they were bigger fans of Psych, everything would have been different. But luckily, they were just small Psych fans. Now, Major League, I guess, was probably the movie. I don't know. What else was Corbin Burnson in? Anybody else know?
Not much. He's good in the league. I don't know. I wasn't around in the 80s, so.
He's in The Dentist, in case you're wondering.
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Oh yeah, he's in that. Yeah, but that's like mid 2000s, isn't it?
2005, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's obviously in Major League 2. This is second. Yeah.
Another classic.
He's in Life with the Dog.
Yep. Great one.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Psych 3, This Is Gus. Psych 2.
Raging Sharks.
This is just an incredible IMDb page. Magnum PI, 4 episodes of the reboot TV show that ran from 2018 to 2023 and is still on, apparently, on Peacock. Hey, shout out. Any final thoughts on Psych, guys?
I do think it's a good show overall. If you haven't seen any of the episodes, I would check it out. Definitely when I were back, but just wanted to shout out Connor Vano. I mean, #1 guest on the pod in general for movies. And then, of course, I mean, if we start a new series, he's got to be the #1 guest too. But yeah, just wanted to throw a shout out to that because I think that's pretty cool.
Yes, definitely wanted to say thank you to Connor for coming on.
I appreciate it. I tune into the pod every once in a while to kind of stay caught up with what y'all are talking about related to movies, and maybe one day I'll actually watch what you guys watch. But yeah, it's always good to catch up and come on the pod to talk to y'all. Of course, we live in 3 completely different states and 3 kind of sort of different geographical locations, but yeah, it's good to catch up. I'm glad to be here. So
it's great to talk to you. It's great to talk Psych. Thank you to everybody that listened to the episode, and we'll catch you in the next month. See you in May.
What you've just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.